Good evening and welcome to the Conservative Candidates Leadership Debate. This is the fourth of 5 debates that will be taking place before the leadership vote on May 27th. I'm very pleased to note that this is the largest audience we have had thus far as part of these debates.
Your moderator for this debate, and I thank you for joining us as we broadcast to you live from Edmonton, Alberta.
My name is Stephanie Kuzi. I will be your moderator for this debate, and I want to thank you for joining us live from Edmonton, Alberta.
We'll have 13 candidates joining us. Each will give their positions on a series of questions ranging from crime and safety to the future of the Conservative Party, as well as questions directly from Conservative Party members.
This evening, we have 13 candidates joining us. Each candidate will receive questions from members of the party and will answer questions with respect to criminality, security, the future of the Conservative Party of Canada, and questions.
Will present their views on these topics and more, and what a Conservative government led by them as Prime Minister would look like.
Each candidate will present his or her views on these themes and also on what the party would look like or what a Conservative government would look like if led by them.
This is a bilingual debate. Every candidate will be given an equal opportunity to respond in English or French, and the order has been predetermined by random draw.
This debate will be bilingual, and each candidate will have an equal opportunity to answer in English or in French, and the order of replying has been predetermined by a draw.
This debate will be approximately 2 hours in length in order to provide all candidates a reasonable chance to speak to you, Conservative Party members and all Canadians.
This debate will last for 2 hours in order to allow all candidates to have a reasonable opportunity to speak to you, members of the Conservative Party, and all Canadians.
Each candidate will be invited to make a 90-second opening statement. Answers to each question will be limited to 45 seconds. As well, each candidate has the opportunity to use 3 45-second rebuttals at any point during the debate and will signal their desire to use their rebuttal by raising a red paddle.
Each candidate will be invited to make a 90-second opening statement. Answers to all questions will be limited to 45 seconds. Furthermore, each candidate will have 3 opportunities to use 45-second rebuttals and will signal his or her desire to do so using a red paddle.
To start this debate with her opening statement.
I now invite Lisa Raitt to open the debate with her opening statement.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to a night where 12 out of 13 candidates will violently agree on absolutely every question that comes forward.
But I'm very pleased to be here this evening.
I love being here in Edmonton and seeing so many different Conservative members. And give yourself a round of applause for a beautifully sold-out event tonight, and congratulations to everybody. What I want you to think about as you watch all of us candidates tonight is, who is the leader that's going to have the vision, that's going to have the leadership experience, and who has that life history that's going to appeal to Canadians in the next general election? I can tell you that in the past, I've been trained as a lawyer, a litigation attorney, and I promise you this, I will hammer on Justin Trudeau every single day in the House of Commons and hold his government account for what he has promised Canadians and what promises he has broken to Canadians. I'm from Cape Breton Island. I represent the great people of Milton, Ontario, and I'm in that hockey rink and basketball court every single weekend. I know what it is to be part of a Canadian family that is struggling. I know what it's like to worry about my parents, to worry about my children. I can tell you this, I can connect with Canadians because I understand them, and I want us all to do better. So enjoy the show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. I look very much forward to your questions. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Kelly Leach.
Freedom, prosperity, a unified Canadian identity. Our country was built on a shared set of values: hard work, generosity, freedom, and tolerance. Those values that built our country are the ones why individuals choose every day to come to this place, to Canada. We have a Canadian way. Men and women are equal. You can worship who you wish. Hate speech is unacceptable. We have a Canadian way. Now, I've been talking about a common sense policy. I think we should interview each immigrant, refugee, and visitor to Canada. Last year, only 1 in 10 were interviewed. That means about 270,000 individuals entered Canada and didn't meet a Canadian. Now, you're going to be told certain things about this policy. I encourage you not to listen. Go direct to the source. I have a video. Go and take a look at it on my website, because then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Common sense policies that Canadians agree with. Let me be clear, as Conservatives, we win when we are not afraid. When we are not afraid to talk about conservative ideas based on conservative principles. I'm going to fight for those conservative ideas every single day. Thank you very much.
Stephen Blaney.
Good evening, bonsoir. My name is Stephen Blaney. I am the other candidate from Quebec with a French accent and an Irish name. In French and in English, I can tell you that every day we lose $16 a barrel because we don't get our oil to the market. Comme Québécois,
As a
comme Pierre,
Quebecer,
comme ingénieur,
as
je peux
a
vous dire
proud
qu'à chaque
engineer,
jour,
I can tell
on
you
perd
that every
16
single day
parce
we
qu'on ne
lose
rend pas
$16
notre pétrole
because
canadien
we
sur les
cannot get our
marchés
Canadian
internationaux.
oil to
This is
international
more than
markets.
$10 billion we could invest in our society. I can tell you, I can say this message both in French and in English throughout Canada. As your leader, if this is your decision, because this is important, we need to get our energy to the market. We need to stand up as a country and break those barriers amongst provinces. My name is Stephen Blaney, and I'm willing to have a great conversation with you tonight. Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Brad Trost.
Why are you a conservative? Why do people vote for the Conservative Party? Because they agree with conservative principles, because they care about things that make them conservative. But for different people, different things make them a conservative. For some people, it's because they're a social conservative, because they care about the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. For other people, they're fiscal conservatives. They can't stand the waste on things like the CBC. They despise the high tax rates, the grab for money that always ends up with waste in Ottawa. And for other people, they're populist, democratic conservatives. They believe in the common sense of the common people. We need each and every one of those conservatives. That's how we won in 2011. That's how we built our party. And we need a leader who actually can identify with each and every one of those wings of the party. I am a social conservative. I am a fiscal conservative. And I am a populist democratic conservative who believes in the common sense of the common people. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Rick Peterson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Peterson. I'm one of you. I'm from Grand Prairie, Alberta. Grew up in Grand Prairie. This is my hometown. Came to University of Alberta. I played for the University of Alberta Golden Bears. We were national champions 74-75. Any leadership lessons I learned were here under Coach Drake. Coach Drake, I know, is watching from the Devonshire Retirement Home. The values, the lessons, the leadership skills that I have are from Northern Alberta. I'm in this race because in the early 80s, under another Trudeau, my dad lost his house, my mom lost her dress shop, my brother lost his construction company. I know what it's like to eat wieners and beans. Wieners and beans, ladies and gentlemen. Saturday night, wieners and beans, Foster Hewitt. Monday night, wieners and beans. We're on a track for wieners and beans right now with the second Trudeau. If you want to eat wieners and beans, I'm here because I bring 3 skill sets that can keep us off wieners and beans. 0 corporate income tax, 15% personal flat tax is the economic platform that will beat Trudeau. Je suis complètement bilingue, je parle français.
I'm completely bilingual. I speak French. I will be a candidate soon in Montreal and Saint Laurent.
I'm here tonight. Thank you very much.
Deepak O'Brien.
I needed to drink the water while they were talking, you know. Yeah. But good evening. Bonsoir. Monsieur
Good evening,
Zemada.
ladies and
Je
gentlemen.
m'appelle
My
Deepak
name is
O'Brien.
Deepak O'Brien.
Je suis le doyen.
I
Parti
am the
Conservateur.
dean of the
Now
Conservative
the
Party.
French is away. What I'm saying is, now what I'm saying is, I am the senior most conservative member of parliament, elected in 1997. So I come with the voice of experience. What we have to be very careful is that we don't fall into the traps that the Liberal Party puts for us from the time I joined into wedge politics. In the Reform days, they called us extremist racist party. It took us almost a decade to fight that level between Jason Kenney, myself, and everybody else. And the result was in 2006 and in 2011, we got a majority government. What was the secret? It was very simple. We had a wide blue tent. We opened up our tent with core fiscal policies that we have. There's nothing wrong with our policies. Votre, nothing wrong with our policies, ladies and gentlemen. But what is wrong is that we fall into wedge politics. We must stick with what is the key thing for us. The Conservative Party must be identified with diversity, inclusiveness, and equality. We should not let the Liberal Party identify us by saying we are the opposite. No. We, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you, Mr.
know it.
O'Brien. Merci, Mr. O'Brien.
That's it. Thank you. .com.
Aaron O'Toole.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. It's great for me to be here as an Ontario MP in the heartland of Canada. I was proud to be in Blaine Culkin's riding last night. There was 2 of us there, 50 to 60 Conservatives asking questions. And I say whether there's 50 Conservatives or 500, I don't care about the format. I want to be there. And I think it's important for our next leader to be there. And Alberta is the backbone of the modern Conservative Party. And you know what, friends, as an Ontario MP, I've often said Alberta was also the backbone of our economy coming out of the Great Recession. We saw that. The opportunity and the Alberta advantage is not just yours, it's Canada's advantage. I talk about that as an Ontario MP every day in the House of Commons. Mais maintenant, nous avons une crise
But
d'emploi
now
au
we have
Canada,
an employment crisis in
particulièrement
Canada,
ici en
particularly
Alberta.
right here in
Et
Alberta.
chaque mois,
And every
le
month,
gouvernement Trudeau
the
aggrave
Trudeau
la
government
situation.
makes things
Plus de
worse.
taxes, plus de
More
dettes, et
taxes,
aucune
more debt,
opportunité
and
concrète.
no concrete
No opportunity
opportunities.
for our young people. And what's Trudeau's answer? Get used to 10 years of job churn. Friends, that's unacceptable. As your Prime Minister, I will say the same thing, supporting Alberta jobs and opportunity, not just in Calgary, but in Toronto, Vancouver, and Halifax, defending jobs that help families and help our country. But to win, I need your support. I need you to join the mission. Thank you very much.
Andrew Scheer.
Well, good evening, everyone. Bonsoir, tout le monde. C'est un grand plaisir d'être
Good evening,
avec
everyone.
vous,
It's a great pleasure to
ici.
be with you
I bring you
here.
greetings from Saskatchewan, your neighbor to the east, and I can tell you I've met a lot of great Albertans who have left this province to return to Saskatchewan because of the terrible economic situation that you have here. And I understand that there's a lot of people in Alberta that might have a little bit of premier envy right now. and And I can assure you that while there's a lot of work to do here provincially, I will do everything I can federally to export a little bit of prairie common sense around the rest of the country. That's what we need. I'm in this race for one simple reason. I can't let Justin Trudeau do the same thing to my 5 children that his father did to my generation. When you think about the debt and deficits that Pierre Trudeau racked up, it's the exact same thing, the same plan that Justin Trudeau has. C'est très important quand on a une
It's
chef
very
qui peut parler
important to have
français,
a leader
qui
who
peut
can speak
communiquer,
French and
exprimer
can
un message
communicate
positif à tous
and
les
express a
Canadiens.
positive
We need a
message
leader
to
who
all
can articulate
Canadians.
a positive message about what it means to be conservative. It wasn't our policies that were the problem in the last election. We don't need to become more like the Liberals. I reject a carbon tax. I reject a tax and spend approach. I will return conservative policies to Ottawa. Thank you.
Chris Alexander.
Hi, everyone. I'll get right to the point. My dream is a new Canada. A strong economy, yes. But above all, a country that lives up to its potential to provide opportunity for all Canadians. That is a voice, a model, and a leader for the world in troubled times. I want to see our Canada go beyond what we've been today to be the Canada of our dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 great tasks ahead. We need to build a massive bridge to Asia, to Europe. We need to make sure that by 2050, half of our exports are going beyond North America. We need to embrace the new economy. We need to bring deep tech here to Canada, from artificial intelligence and robotics to genetic engineering and the Internet of Things. We want that economy to happen here alongside our industries that have brought us this far. Ladies and gentlemen, none of this will be easy. Ceci sera difficile.
It will be difficult. It will involve joint working with innovators and investors.
We can do it. This is the Canada of our dreams. This is the Canada of our future. Let's build it together. Thank you very much.
Michael Chong.
Bonsoir, mes amis.
Good evening,
I'm
friends.
Michael Chong, and I'm from a small town in Ontario called Fergus. My wife and I have 3 young children. And I tell you that because I think the next leader of our party needs to be able to earn the support of middle-class families and understand the challenges of raising a family in a rapidly changing society. My wife and I and our 3 kids live on a farm. And I tell you that because the next leader of our party needs to be able to maintain the support of rural Canadians. I grew up just down the road, the son of a Dutch immigrant mother and a Chinese immigrant father. And I tell you that because the next leader of the Conservative Party needs to re-earn the support of immigrant communities in this country. I worked in the private sector for 10 years. I was the Chief Information Officer at the National Hockey League Players Association. And I tell you that because the next leader of our party needs to understand the value of a dollar. I'm the candidate in this leadership race with the most conservative policies and principles. I'm the most conservative on democratic reform. I'm the MP who introduced the Reform Act. And as leader and Prime Minister, my government will introduce the most sweeping set of democratic reforms to the House of Commons and political parties to return power back to you, the people, and grassroots party members. I'm also the most conservative on the environment. My emissions policy begins with smaller government and lower income taxes. And I'm the most conservative on the economy. I will introduce the largest income tax cut of any of the candidates in this leadership race. But I can't do it without your help. Join our campaign, and together we can build the winning coalition to win in 2019. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Pierre Lemieux.
Good evening, Alberta, and good evening, Canada. Je suis Pierre Lemieux.
I'm Pierre Lemieux, and I am running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, and I am bilingual. And you must be bilingual in order to communicate with Anglophones and the 8 million Francophones living across this country.
I believe in a strong, healthy, vibrant Alberta economy, because you are at the center of our Canadian economy. When you succeed, you help Canada succeed. I am also for pipelines. And I cannot understand why it is, as an Ontarian, because I'm from Ontario, why Eastern Canadians, we cannot access Western Canadian oil and energy. We should absolutely be able to invest in Western Canada. Right now, we spend billions of dollars in Eastern Canada buying oil and energy from other countries. Instead, those billions of dollars should be invested right here in Canada, right here in Alberta, solidifying your economy and you thereby helping Canada's economy. So I want you to know, thank you. Pipelines, we have the safest pipelines in the world. Canadian pipelines are safe and they create jobs, and we need jobs in Alberta and in Canada. If you want to buy Canada policy, I firmly believe that Canadians should be able to buy Canadian energy from coast to coast to coast. And as leader of the Conservative Party and future Prime Minister of Canada, I will put that plan into action. Thank you. Merci.
Andrew Saxton.
It's great to be back in Edmonton. Je veux dire bonsoir à tous les francophones.
And I want to say good evening to all the Francophones watching this tonight.
Trillions is the #1 issue facing our country today. This Trudeau government, by 2045, will increase our debt to $1.5 trillion. This is a serious problem. We need a leader who knows how to solve this problem. We need a leader with the expertise and experience to fix this problem. I have over 30 years' experience in finance. I've worked for 2 of the world's largest banks in 5 countries. At the age of 33, I was a senior vice president of HSBC in Singapore. I worked with Jim Flaherty as his parliamentary secretary in finance. I also worked with Joe Oliver, and I was part of his team that balanced the budget back in 2015. It's irresponsible and unfair to future generations to continue to spend taxpayers' money on this spending spree. We must put it to an end, which is why I have a plan to do that. I'm the only candidate here tonight, or not here tonight, who has a plan, who has a plan to balance our budget by 2021, 2 years into our mandate. It's on my website, andrewsaxton.ca. I also have a plan to get young Canadians back to work with an apprenticeship program. It's also on my website, andrewsaxton.ca. Merci beaucoup. See you later.
Et finalement, Monsieur Maxime
And finally, Mr. Maxime Bernier.
Hello. I'm Maxime Bernier, MP from Beauce and proud father of 2 daughters, Charlotte and Megan. I'm a conservative who believes in individual freedom and personal responsibility. And actually, here in Alberta, you call me the Albertan from Quebec, and I'm very proud of that. And because I speak like you about economic freedom, personal responsibility, capitalism, but sorry about that, with a French accent. And I want to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada because we need to phase out Justin Trudeau, and we need to do that when we are speaking about our values, and that's what I want to do. Individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And I'm the only candidate who want to reform the equalization formula because it is not fair. It is not fair, and I have the courage to say it because we must have the courage of our conviction. And I want to do that. I want to give an incentive to other provinces, like my own province in Quebec, to develop their natural resources. And I want to have a formula that would be fair for every Canadian. I want also to abolish corporate welfare, and we will do that together if we believe in our principle. Thank you. Merci.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Conservative Party leadership candidates, Madame et Monsieur,
ladies and gentlemen, your Conservative leadership candidates.
Lisa Raitt, Kelly Leitch, Stephen Blaney, Brad Trost, Rick Peterson, Deepak Oberoi, Aaron O'Toole, Andrew Scheer, Chris Alexander, Michael Chong, Pierre Lemieux, Andrew Saxton, and Maxime Bernier. We'll now start with our first question of the evening from the theme of crime and safety. Lisa Raitt, you'll answer first, and I'll call on candidates individually in the order from my left to right, according to positions. As a reminder, you will have 45 seconds to fully answer. There is a clock next to me, and I will give you signals as your time winds down. Due to the amount of candidates we have, the 45-second timing will be strict.
We will begin with our first question of the evening related to crime and safety. Lisa Raitt, you will be the first to answer, and after that I will invite each individual candidate in the order from left to right to respond, based on their position. A little reminder, you will have 45 seconds to give a full answer. I will be timing you and will give you a signal as your time winds down. Because of the large number of candidates, the 45-second limit will be strictly enforced.
Lisa Raitt, question 1, première question. According to information from Statistics Canada, Alberta has seen a significant spike in crime. Some have attributed this to a struggling economy, especially with the decline in the oil and gas sector. If elected leader and eventually Prime Minister, what steps would you take to turn these glaring statistics around, most notably here in Alberta?
Based on information from Statistics Canada, the province of Alberta is facing a spike in crime. Some have attributed that situation to a struggling economy, particularly with the decline in the oil and gas sector. If you are elected leader and Prime Minister, what measures would you put in place to turn these statistics around right here in Alberta?
Merci beaucoup. I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. It's a very serious issue. I grew up in Cape Breton, and what I do see when I go back home now is increased crime for the same reasons. What our government used to do with Stephen Harper is always keep in contact with the chiefs of police. I've always found them to be an incredible great source of figuring out what to do in order to help local communities. Decisions and understandings of local communities are actually going to help us immensely in trying to fix problems that are happening specifically here. I can tell you more facetiously that you are being robbed every single day you have a carbon tax here in the province of Alberta. There's no question about that. But that being said, a strong relationship with the people who know what they're doing, the chiefs of police in this country, can give us good guidance on how to help and ensure that we keep our citizens safe. Thank you.
Ms. Leach, you have 45 seconds. Vous avez 45 secondes.
The safety and security of Canadians is something that's paramount. And individuals choose every single day to come to Canada because of our safety and security. One of the things that obviously is intimated in this question is making sure that Canadians have jobs as well. Because when you're safe and secure at home and that you're prosperous, you're not desperate. I grew up in Fort McMurray, Alberta. I've lived under a Trudeau government before in this province. I can tell you, our family friends that now have run out of severance, they are desperate. I can tell you, I'll make sure that they get jobs in the future, whether that's in the oil and gas industry or otherwise. But I've also been focused on making sure that individuals can protect themselves. And that's why I'll change the criminal code to make sure women can protect themselves by using mace and pepper spray, unlike some of our other candidates in this race.
Thank you. Stephen Blaney.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. There's a direct link between unemployment and drug addiction. That's why I want to dismantle reserve, because this is an issue where we are preventing people from living their full opportunity. As former public safety minister, I walk in the street, I saw injection site in Vancouver, and this was not nice. I work with Senator Boisvenu. We brought in forward the Victim Bill of Rights with Peter MacKay. We have to put victim at the heart of our criminal system, and I'm proud to count on the support of former police Jean-Guy Dagenet, 30-year police officer, and he's been of great advice while I was at public safety. We need to be tough on criminal and put victims at the heart of our justice system. Thank you.
Brad Trost.
I remember when someone used to tell me the oil towns in Alberta that were boom towns had more crime because they had more money. Look, when people commit crimes, there's two ways you deal with it. You have stiffer sentences and more police. That's a conclusion various economists have come to when they've run crime numbers over the years. What can the federal government do, though, to make sure the law is enforced? Actually back the legislation that we passed in the House of Commons. The courts strike it down, the Liberal justices want to get rid of it. We need to back up with what's known as the notwithstanding clause to make sure the good criminal justice laws that the Stephen Harper Conservatives put through are actually enforced. Thank you.
Rick Peterson.
You know, as the son of an RCMP officer, I can tell you I have some pretty strong ideas on crime. But you know what? I'm a businessman. I'm in the trenches every day with you. I meet payroll. I pay people. I create jobs. So you know what we're going to do under Rick Peterson as Prime Minister? We're going to get government the hell out of the way and let you flourish. Zero corporate income tax, ladies and gentlemen. Under Prime Minister Peterson, zero corporate income tax. Every one of you will pay a 15% flat personal tax. Okay? GST is going to go up. We're going to kickstart this economy. We're going to bring investors into Canada, into Edmonton, into Calgary with a Prime Minister who's from Northern Alberta. And we're also going to do one key thing. We're going to scrap the carbon tax. There will be no carbon tax. And the final thing we're going to do is elect a Conservative majority under my leadership. Thank you.
Deepak O'Brien.
Notre politique sans excellence.
Our policies are excellent.
Our policies have been excellent. Conservatives have one of the best policies to fight crime. Under the government of which I served, we have come up with policies that address those issues. Where the danger is today with the Liberal government. The Liberal government with their majority is turning around whatever we did to bring victims' right bill, to bring bills that kept Canadian streets safe, give more resources to the police force. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the danger. The danger today is this majority Liberal government that will not listen to anybody and will bulldoze their way right through the whole system because they think they are a majority and they don't have to listen to the Canadians. We should be proud of our record. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a rebuttal from Monsieur Stephen Blaney.
It can be at the end if you wish.
No, please
Okay.
proceed.
Well, our government and the revolving doors, 2-for-1 sentencing for criminals. When you are victims, you get a life sentences or a death sentences. It was break down by the Supreme Court. I am committed as a leader and eventually a prime minister to bring it back by using the notwithstanding clause and reverse the bad decision that was made by the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Aaron O'Toole.
Merci. Comme j'ai dit au début,
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, we are dealing with an employment crisis, which relates to the crime we're experiencing.
We need to deploy more RCMP resources in rural communities. I see my friend Jim Maglinski here. Our caucus has people that have served in uniform. Myself, RCMP, we're the party of safe communities, particularly on the borders, where we've seen illegal migration, people using the political situation in the United States to come across the border in rural communities that don't have much police presence. We've seen crime increase. The federal government has a duty to act, not just to enforce our agreements with the United States, but to deploy resources where crime is going up. As leader and as Prime Minister, I will do that. Thank you.
Andrew Scheer.
Well, absolutely, there are links between the socioeconomic conditions and criminality. But the issue that Conservatives always have is combating the Liberal messaging on this, because what the Liberals always focus on is compassion. But their compassion is misplaced, because there is no compassion for law-abiding citizens when repeat and dangerous offenders are let out into the community to terrorize victims once again. Nothing drives me more crazy as a parent than when I get notified by the Regina Police to be on the lookout because another dangerous offender, a child offender, has been let out in the streets. I believe that it's more compassionate to keep dangerous and repeat offenders behind bars.
Chris Alexander.
One of the greatest achievements of our government was that after 10 years in office, almost 10 years in office, crime rates in Canada had fallen to their lowest levels since Prime Minister Diefenbaker. That was a Conservative achievement. That was achieved under a Prime Minister who cared about the rule of law, who cared about justice, who cared about stopping, preventing, and punishing crimes. We need to get back to that. Our biggest problem today, and yes, there is more crime here, there's more crime in Toronto, 30 to 40% higher levels of violent crime in my hometown. We need a Prime Minister who cares about these things. We need to stop the revolving door for repeat and violent offenders. We need more resources for police to go after guns and gangs. And we need to stand up for victims as we did all through our time in government.
Michael Chong.
Well, of course, we have to have a strong criminal justice system that acts as a deterrent and that punishes criminal offenders. But we also need to create greater economic opportunity for all Canadians. And that starts with my plan to introduce the largest income tax cuts of all the candidates in this race, an $18 billion income tax cut that we would introduce in our very first budget in the spring of 2020, a 1% of GDP income tax cut that would deliver economic opportunity and growth for this country in a way that we've not seen for many, many years. But we also have to acknowledge that the Aboriginal population is disproportionately represented in Canadian prisons. And we need to create greater economic opportunity for Aboriginal Canadians, ensuring that they too have a shot at the good life in this country, and that's exactly what I'm also committed to doing.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Yes, please proceed with your rebuttal, Monsieur.
Thank you very much. I just want to comment that Mike is talking about the biggest tax cut in Canadian history, but he forgets to mention there's also going to be the biggest tax increase in Canadian history because he's pitching a revenue-neutral carbon tax. I told you before, thank you, I'm for pipelines and I am against the carbon tax. A Pierre Lemieux government will repeal the carbon tax because the carbon tax simply inflicts financial pain and suffering on every single Albertan, every single Canadian across this country. And unfortunately, low and middle income families will be hurt the worst. An income tax, a carbon tax simply sucks money out of the economy. It siphons money out of your pockets, money that you could spend in our economy creating jobs. Thank you.
And now Mr. Chong will respond to Monsieur Lemieux's comments.
The cheapest way, the most economically efficient way the most conservative way to reduce emissions is a revenue-neutral carbon tax. It's what British Columbia did. Here, listen to this. Listen to this. It is the cheapest way to reduce emissions. Any other approach leads to bigger government, more government bureaucracy, more green programs, more green subsidies, and more green regulations. My plan for a revenue-neutral carbon tax sweeps away all that green regulation, green program, and green subsidy and replaces it with a revenue-neutral carbon tax that will be used to pay for one of the largest income tax cuts in Canadian history. It is the most conservative approach, and I believe that will become party policy, and we will win on that in the next election.
A response from Mr. Aaron O'Toole.
Thank you very much. I'm using my rebuttal because you notice the question was on rural crime, so I answered on rural crime. But we're talking carbon tax now. So I'm the only person that worked in this industry when I was in law school for the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. This is a resource industry that needs to be supported, and the carbon tax does not do that, so I will cut the tax. And I'll convince Canadians of why. In Western Canada alone, some of the shale deposits are also in the United States, where investment will not flow because there will be a tax in Canada and not in the United States. The same for the auto industry in Ontario, a tax in Ontario and not in the United States. It will kill jobs and cost families and seniors more. That's why I'll end it.
Mr. Brad Trost.
Yeah, since we've moved on to the subject of carbon tax, let me say there's two types of carbon tax. There's the open, direct, public carbon tax, which is what Mike's talking about, and then there's the hidden carbon tax. Mike's saying get rid of the hidden one and have an open one, okay? Most of the rest, if not all the rest of the candidates are saying, let's leave the hidden carbon tax through regulations, subsidies, etc. I want to get rid of both carbon taxes, not just the one that we can see in public, but I want to get rid of those regulations and green environmental welfare subsidy programs that are a hidden carbon tax. Remember, there is two types of carbon tax. I don't agree with Mike, but he is getting rid of the hidden one. We need to get rid of both types of carbon tax.
Andrew Scheer.
The question was on crime and in cities with economic troubles, but someone mentioned something that is getting not enough attention, and that is the crisis that is happening at our borders with illegal migrants coming up from the U.S. We need to close this loophole. This is an abuse of our system, and we need to preserve the integrity for legitimate refugees and legitimate people coming to this country. And just because it's been mentioned so often with respect to my friend Michael, you know, I've never seen a revenue-neutral carbon tax. You know, if Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and a revenue-neutral carbon tax all see $1 on the sidewalk, which one picks it up?
Andrew Saxton.
A federal carbon tax is not going to reduce emissions. It's simply going to transfer emissions south of the border as our producers pack up and leave to go to the United States and take thousands of jobs with them. As leader, I will axe the tax. I will also go to Washington and to deal with President Trump on a North America-wide solution to climate change, because Canada only represents 1.6% of global emissions. Anything that we do to help the climate, it has to be done in harmony with the United States, and that's what I will do to help our climate. Merci beaucoup.
Michael Chong.
I'm a conservative because I believe in conservative principles, and I believe in conservative leadership. And sometimes that means taking difficult positions in defense of your principles. The reality is that the most conservative way to reduce emissions is a revenue-neutral carbon tax. It's not what Rachel Notley has done. It's what British Columbia has done. It's supported by leading North American conservatives, Reagan Republicans, like James Baker and George Shultz. It's supported by Prime Minister Harper's former head of policy, Mark Cameron. It is the most conservative way to reduce emissions, and it will also allow us to introduce one of the largest income tax cuts in Canadian history, putting more money back into the pockets of Canadian families and Canadian companies. That's why I'm fighting for this policy.
Deepak O'Brien.
Thank you. When I was in Colombo acting as the Prime Minister at the Commonwealth Heads of Conference, the issue of carbon tax came. Me and Prime Minister Australia, Mr. Abbott, fought against it because it failed in Australia. I don't understand when we have 1.5% only, why do we have to have carbon tax here? Why don't you look at alternative? Nuclear energy is one of the solutions. We can look at it. We are good at nuclear energy. Why can we not use nuclear energy to reduce our carbon footprint here? We have the answer, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go that route. Forget the carbon tax issue. Thank you.
Rick Peterson.
You know, one of the things about being in Alberta is we're so used to having Ontario politicians coming here and giving us ideas. And with respects to, well, you know, we have a saying here, guys. It's all hat, no cattle, right? So my friend Aaron O'Toole is siding with Michael Chong. Aaron doesn't want to balance the budget. Aaron won't sign the balanced budget from Generation Screwed. Aaron, I don't see anything in his plan about the word tax cut. He'll carbon tax, but Aaron does not cut taxes. Aaron wants to increase Border Patrol. Aaron wants to increase, there's no tax cuts in his policy. So all I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is you got two guys from Ontario who talk a talk, but you got to walk the walk. 0 corporate income tax, 50% flat tax. Let's get it going. Thank you.
Maxime Bernier.
So, speaking about taxes, I don't agree with my friend Michael on that. And as you know, I don't like taxes. I don't like big fat government. So yes, I'm against a carbon tax. And I think we won't be competitive. And you know here in Alberta what's happening when we are imposing a tax like that. So the way to deal with the new President Trump is to not having a carbon tax first, but also to lower our capital gain, to abolish a capital gains tax in Canada. And I'm the only one who wants to do that. So no more capital gains tax. That will help us to have more investment in our country, would be more productive, and the private sector would create wealth and job in this country. I think that's the solution for being more effective.
Michael Chong will use his final rebuttal. Dernière réplique de Michael Chong.
You know, the fight over emissions pricing and a carbon tax is like the fight over free trade. For 120 years in this country, till 1988, the Conservative Party of Canada was resolutely anti-free trade. It had been part of the party's policy for 120 years. But do you know what? Brian Mulroney in the 1988 free trade election did a 180 on free trade because he knew that fighting for free trade was the right thing for his children and his grandchildren. It was the right thing for Canadians. And he fought that election, and we won it, and we have never looked back. And so, too, it goes with the fight for climate change. It goes on the issue of pricing emissions and a revenue-neutral carbon tax. I am committed to this policy because it is a Conservative policy that will do right for our children and our grandchildren and do right for Canada.
Aaron O'Toole.
Friends, it's critical for us to win back the trust of Canadians. And to do that, we have to have a plan that's believable and achievable. Some of my friends on this stage say they'll cut taxes to virtually nothing and balance the budget in 2 years. Impossible, and they're already being called out on it. So my plan is affordable and deliverable, and all my policies costed. My tax relief instantly for young people who are facing the worst employment prospects in a generation. If they fail, all of our systems fail, including OAS and other programs. Small business, the engine, small and medium-sized, especially oilfield supply businesses, were the engine of this economy. So I'm going to lower their taxes to create jobs, and I'm going to help single seniors who are struggling to stay in their homes. All deliverable and a balanced budget. Let's win the next election.
Andrew Saxton.
Aaron, I'd like to see your plan because you say that you're going to balance the budget and you're also going to double spending on the military. Which one is it? You can't have both. I'm the only candidate that has a costed balance plan. It's in writing. It's on my website, andrewsaxton.ca. I can balance the budget by 2021. But I tell you the most important thing facing Canada and facing Alberta is we have $129 billion in energy projects that are being held up because we have a process that's being hijacked by special interest groups. As Prime Minister of Canada, yes, that's a lot of money. That's $8 to $12 billion a year in taxes that we're forfeiting as a result of that. As Prime Minister of Canada, I will put in place a transportation and energy corridor to make sure that we get pipelines, we get energy projects approved and to tidal water so that we can get the world price for our gasoline.
Chris Alexander.
The carbon tax, the economic pain that Alberta has been feeling, they do contribute to the pain families are feeling, and even to the crime problem. And so it's not enough just to get rid of the carbon tax. And I would be one of those who would never put in place a federal carbon tax, get rid of a federal carbon tax immediately. But we need to go beyond that. These are governments, Justin Trudeau, Rachel Notley, who don't just want to tax oil, they want to phase out this industry. And we have to make sure that this is a pillar of the Canadian economy for generations to come. We need pipelines, west and east. We need to become a strategic supplier to Europe, India, and the other big economies of Asia. It's too important. It's about our future.
Kelly Leach.
I'm from Fort McMurray. I'm going to abolish the carbon tax immediately. And then once I save that money, I'm going to dismantle the CBC to put more money back in your pockets. Being a conservative is about being not afraid to talk about those things that are the elephant in the room. I plan to talk about them every single day. Those common sense ideas that make sure you have more money in your pockets and your government's responsive to you. I'm looking forward to being Prime Minister in 2019.
And now we'll continue with the responses to our first question. Finally, finalement, on va continuer avec
we will continue with the responses to the first question.
Pierre Lemieux.
Pierre Lemieux.
Bien, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very
Au
much.
sujet de la crime, vous allez
With respect
entendre
to
les
crime,
réponses
you
semblables
will be,
entre tous les candidats
hearing
conservateurs
similar
parce que,
answers
comme
from
les
all
conservateurs,
conservative
nous
candidates
sommes contre
because
les
as
criminels,
conservatives
nous sommes
we
pour
are
les
against
victimes.
criminals and
And
we
I'm proud
are
of the work that I
for
did with
the
my
victim.
colleagues standing behind me in passing laws that crack down on crime. But my concern when it comes to the criminal justice system is the Supreme Court struck down some of those laws. And in some cases, if I remember correctly, the changes we made to the victim surcharge were not applied in court. And so when is the last time we have actually had a discussion, a respectful discussion about concerns we might have with the judiciary encroaching upon Parliament? We haven't had one in a long time. And that's because of political correctness. And I'm against political correctness and for freedom of speech. Thank you.
Andrew Saxton.
A lot of people in Canada don't believe we have a justice system because not everybody gets justice. 95% of sex crimes go unreported because victims feel too intimidated to come forward. As Prime Minister of Canada, I will make sure that victims feel comfortable to come forward and report crimes against them. Senator Bob Runciman has a bill before the Senate. It's called Wynn's Law. It's in honor of Constable David Wynn. It's a common sense bill. It's a common sense bill that says that judges should have all the information in front of them on a criminal's track record when they come up for bail. It's common sense. The Liberals are opposing that bill. As Prime Minister of Canada, I will make sure that the Wynn Law becomes law.
Maxime Bernier.
Merci. On ne peut pas
Thank you.
avoir plus de liberté
You
et de
can't have
prospérité
more
si on n'a pas de
freedom
sécurité.
and
Et c'est pour
prosperity
ça
if
que
you
nous
don't
tous,
have
les
security.
conservateurs,
And that's
on
why
est d'accord
all of
qu'il
us
faut avoir des lois
conservatives agree
sévères,
that
des
we
lois
need
qui
to
vont
have strict
punir
laws,
les crimes
laws that
sévères.
will
Et surtout,
punish
lorsque quelqu'un
crimes.
a une
And also,
sentence à
when
vie,
someone
il doit
receives a
pouvoir
life
purger
sentence,
cette
that
sentence
person
à vie-là.
must be able
So what I want to do,
actually
I want to give you more
go
freedom.
to the end
I
of
want
that
to have a
sentence.
smaller government. But if you want to have more freedom and more prosperity, we need to have security. And for being sure to have security in this country, we must invest. And also, we must pass strong legislation that, like life means life. I think it's very important to have a legislation like that to be sure that people understand when they're doing a crime, there's a strong penalty. Thank you.
Thank you all. Merci. Kelly Leach, question 2, deuxième question. As a government, Conservatives took great pride in our ability to both protect public safety and focus on punishing criminals, not law-abiding citizens. Many candidates with us tonight have advocated for reform to our firearm laws through legislation, regulation, or policy changes. What do you believe needs to be done with our firearm laws in Canada, and how does your position differentiate yourself from the other candidates on stage?
As a government, the Conservatives took great pride in our ability to protect public safety and punish criminals rather than law-abiding citizens. Many of the candidates here have advocated reform of our firearm laws, as well as regulations. And what do you think needs to be done with our Canadian laws on firearms? And how is your position any different from that of the other leadership candidates?
Thank you very much for the question. First and foremost, your gun, if you're a law-abiding gun owner, is a piece of property. It's your property, just like a book on your bookshelf. I want to make sure that that is actually understood by the Canadian public and by Parliament. The classification system, too much subjectivity. Let's be clear. Let's be objective. That's what we should be doing. Let's make sure that people making the decisions around how we classify firearms in this country actually are representative of Canadians. For me also, as I mentioned before, I also think we need to empower Canadians so they can protect themselves. Whether it be men or women, I want to make sure that if you use mace or pepper spray, you're not the one going to jail, is what happens right now. I'll change the criminal code with a common sense idea to make sure you can protect yourself.
Pardon me. I'm sorry, Monsieur Blaney. We are moving on to Ms. Raitt. Thank you. Ms. Raitt, you have 45 seconds. Vous avez 45 secondes. Oh,
you know, it is the second time, Stephen Blaney, that you tried to get into my shot during a debate. That's all I can say.
But
ladies and gentlemen, I can promise you this. We on this stage all absolutely upheld the fact that we got rid of the wasteful long gun registry. We voted in favor of it. It was the right thing to do. We delivered on that promise. But here's the thing to remember. We made that promise in a campaign, and in order to fulfill that promise, we needed to get elected. And that's what you have to be thinking about when we're standing here today. Who is electable as the leader of the party to get the hearts and minds and the votes of other Canadians? Getting elected is paramount importance to ensuring that we can have things like a general policy discussion on making sure that there are common sense rules. But it starts with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I can.
That's right. Pardon. Oui, Maxime Bernier. Merci.
Okay, merci. I'm very proud of the gun policy that I have. It's simple, efficient, and no more discretion. You will need only a tape measure to be sure that you know in which category your gun will go. So no more discretion for the RCMP. They're in charge to enforce the law, not to make the law. So that will be us, and I'll put that in a legislation. So that will be us, politicians, who will make the law and will ask the RCMP and the policies to enforce the law. And if you go on my website, maximebernier.com, you'll see all that in details. And I was very pleased to have the support of a lot of gun owners across the country. So that's the best policy, and I'm proud of that.
Andrew Saxton.
I'm proud to have been part of a government that got rid of that costly and ineffective long gun registry. $2.2 billion liberal boondoggle. And what did we learn from it? We learned that criminals don't register their guns. We could have known that ahead of time. We could have told them that for free. I will make sure that the RCMP are in charge of enforcing the law, not making the law. Making the law is for lawmakers. I tell you that there's another looming disaster coming our way, and that is that the Supreme Court has ruled that we have to have all of our criminal cases heard within 30 months. Otherwise, the criminals go free. This is something that means that murderers and rapists could go free because of that 30-month rule. We have to make sure. We have 60 vacancies in Canada right now. We have to make sure that those vacancies for judges are filled so that our criminal cases can be heard within 30 months.
Okay. Pierre Lemieux.
Merci beaucoup. J'aimerais vous donner mon bilan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk about my
I was in the
record.
military for 20 years. I served in the Canadian Army. In fact, as part of one Canadian Mechanized Brigade group, which is right here in Edmonton, but I served when they were in Calgary. I served with many units there, including the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. Thank you. I am a gun owner right now, and I am a competitive sports shooter. So I understand the responsibilities that go with gun ownership, as do gun owners all across Canada. I would make many changes to our Firearms Act, because right now we need to fight crime, not fight law-abiding gun owners. There have been some initiatives that have been mentioned, but one that comes from me that has not been mentioned is I believe firearm owners need an advocate, someone with a mandate that will stand on their side and fight for them when the government brings in restrictive legislation.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael Chong.
Hi, I support the heritage of our rural communities. I live on a farm, and I support the rights of law-abiding farmers, hunters, and sports shooters to use their firearms. I also am open to looking at streamlining the ATT process, which can be quite onerous for people going to shooting ranges and people going hunting and the like. But I believe, like Lisa, that the most important thing we need to do to protect the rights of law-abiding firearms users in this country is to elect a conservative government. And that's why I'm in this campaign. Let's be real here. If the election had been held any time in the last year, we would have lost another 20 or 30 conservative seats, and the Liberals would have gained seats. We need to have a leader that can win in 2019 and that can win in all parts of this country.
Chris Alexander.
When I was elected in 2011 in the riding of Ajax-Pickering, the Liberal we defeated was Mark Holland, who had been instrumental in bringing the long gun registry in. With his defeat, the long gun registry was gone. I'm proud of the support I had and our whole team had from gun owners at that time, and we need to continue working in these directions. As a new government, we should go further to make sure that there is no more misconception about where crime is coming from in this country, about who is responsible for violence in this country. It is not law-abiding gun owners, it is criminals, and I would create an independent firearms agency to look after policy, leave the enforcement to the RCMP, let's have an independent agency, the games are over.
Andrew Scheer.
C'était un enjeu très important ici
This
en Alberta,
was a very important issue in Alberta and Saskatchewan, but also in Quebec. There is a history of hunters there. There are many people in Quebec who own a firearm. So this was and is an issue we can win on.
On my team, who is instrumental in dismantling the long gun registry. Very quickly, I will define terms like variance in legislation. I will take away the RCMP's power to make subjective decisions based on how a gun looks, on not what it actually does. I will bring in an ombudsman to fight for individuals, and I will repeal the UN marking regulations. And I'm the only candidate to have said that. We need to remind everyone that criminals don't check to see if they have the right permit before they go and commit crimes.
Aaron O'Toole.
Thank you. Let me be perfectly clear here. I was the first and only candidate to release a comprehensive policy on this early in my leadership race, and the only way for us to fix this issue is to repeal the Firearms Act and start from scratch. I will do that using manufacturers, users, sports shooters and hunters, and law enforcement to get the laws right and to make sure law-abiding citizens are not targeted. I've said that from the beginning. I've also made a pledge to do it in the first 180 days of an O'Toole government, but to get it done and to make sure I defend law-abiding owners from coast to coast, I need your help. Join the mission. Thank you.
Deepak O'Brien.
Thank you. As I said, I've been 20 years in that government, and I started in the opposition, and as Andrew said, I worked very much with Mr. Brightcroots. I called Mr. Gary Brightcroots Mr. Gunn. I won't tell you what he called me. But nevertheless, you know, we worked very hard together, and the results you can see, the elimination of the gun registry and great laws. Of course, the issue of what happened at the flooding at the High River with the RCMP is, of course, an issue of concern to everybody, and that should be addressed when we do that. But folks, the other thing is we're talking about crime. Vincent Lee's case clearly indicated the victim's bill of right needs to be addressed very strongly. You know, people were, yes, they were compassionate, but we must also worry about victims' bill of right. The second thing,
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you.
I'm done.
You are done. Mr. Rick Peterson.
So my wife Irish, who's just sitting over here, we have 2 golden retrievers, and I don't feel more conservative or more connected to this country than when we're out pheasant hunting or duck hunting in northern Alberta, Grand Prairie, Dawson Creek. There's a guy named Oliver Stewart in Dawson Creek I know is watching this, and I get an earful of what needs to be changed on the firearms legislation every time we go hunting. So like Aaron, I totally think that we have to rethink this thing and redo it. I will have my plan in 90 days as opposed to his 190. But I also want to tell everybody in Quebec, I will be a candidate very likely in the riding of Saint-Laurent, which is where Stéphane Dion got shuffled out of, and I will win it back. Mais tous ceux au Québec, ceux et celles au Québec qui sont les chasseurs, qui sont les hommes,
people
et
in
les femmes
Quebec
qui aiment les
who
armes,
are hunters,
je vous écoute, je suis de
I
votre côté,
am here to
je vous
listen to
comprends,
you, I
et avec moi
understand
comme
you,
député à
and with
Saint-Laurent,
me
vous aurez
as the
quelqu'un
MP for
qui vous
Saint-Laurent,
comprend
you will
finalement.
have someone
Merci.
who finally understands you. Thank you.
Brad Trost.
All of us as candidates up here are proud when the Conservative government repealed the long gun registry after 2006. But you know, in 2004, we campaigned on something more substantive to get rid of the entirety of C-68, Alan Rock's gun legislation, which is still partially on the books. That is the first thing we need to absolutely and totally get rid of, whatever's left of Alan Rock's gun legislation. Couple specifics on things. Of course, we all agree on getting rid of the UN markings and things like that, but here's 2 of 7 ideas I've come up with. Let off-duty police officers have more freedom to carry their firearms. That's one thing that's good for justice. 2, convert the PALs back to the FAC system so you can have Canada-wide authorization for transport. I've got a few more ideas. Check out my website. These are things that we need to do. Get rid of Alan Rock's gun law.
Thank you. Et finalement, Monsieur Stephen Blaney.
Oui.
And finally, Mr. Stephen Blaney.
So with your help, we were able to abolish the long gun registry. And then I went further as Public Safety Minister with the Common Sense Firearm Licensing Act, C-42. Very proud of that. But now we need to go a step further. We need to have a real respect for gun owner and stop treating them as second-class citizens. Like Brad says, Alan Rock was saying only police officer and military should have gun. Well, it's a heritage. My father owns a Winchester. So my respect for gun owners reform will include a simplified classification system, of course having an ombudsman, moving the license from 5 to 10 years, having this committee I use so much recreated. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Blaney. Thank you. And now we have a rebuttal from Mr. Deepak O'Brien. Réplique de Monsieur O'Brien.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. I thought I was in Parliament. Anyways, folks, you know, the media tends to tell us we are blue Tories, we are red Tories, we are green Tories, we are pink Tories, we are orange Tories, or we are brown Tories, like me, right? You know. But folks, it's not about being good. It's about winning the trust of all Canadians. Conservatives must win the trust of all Canadians. We should not name people. We should be the big blue tent where everybody can come in and talk and be home following our fiscal policies. That is where we will win. We will win the next election. We should not let the Liberals tell us what is wrong and appoint us. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Another rebuttal from Pierre Lemieux.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to take this opportunity before we get into the next question to tell you that as leader, I feel that we need a bigger, more vibrant party. We need a bigger tent, but that tent needs to include those with social conservative values. And if you have social conservative values, you may feel like I do, you're pushed to the side. The tent is moving way far left. It's starting to look liberal light. And in Ontario, for example, social conservatives have been pushed almost out of the tent. And I believe we have a right to be in that tent. We should be proud of our values. We should be proud of what we stand for. And we need to stand our ground. And I want to ask my fellow leadership candidates what their thoughts are on the role of social conservatives in making our party stronger and more vibrant so we can win the election in 2019. Thank you.
A rebuttal from Maxime Bernier, réplique de Maxime Bernier.
Yes, speaking about our values, I'm the only one on the stage who wants to have free markets everywhere. No exception. No exception for the dairy, poultry, and eggs producer. I'm the only one who wants to abolish supply management. I think that's important. If you believe in capitalism, there's no exception, and that will be good for Canadian consumers. And I'm proud to work with 35 million Canadians and not to work with a special interest group. There's only 19,000 people under supply management producer. So we must think big and think for Canadians, and like that, Canadians will save $2.6 billion every year, and I'm proud of that policy. If you believe in conservative principle, you must abolish the supply management cartel.
Thank you, Maxime. Okay, Stephen Blaney, question 3, troisième question. This comes from a retired Canadian Armed Forces member, Mike, from here in Alberta, and has to do with latest news out of the new administration in the US as it relates to NATO commitments and President Trump pushing NATO members to contribute more. Mike writes, with Canada as a member of NATO, we fall short of our 2% GDP commitment on defense expenditures. What plans do you have for Canada to contribute our fair share to our NATO allies, specifically within the short term of becoming Prime Minister, then over the next 10 years?
This question comes from a retired armed forces member, Mike in Alberta, and deals with news coming out of the new U.S. administration with respect to NATO commitments. President Trump is pushing members to contribute more. With Canada as a member of NATO, we have not met our 2% GDP commitment to military defense. What plan would you propose so that Canada can pay its share to our allies in NATO after becoming Prime Minister and over the long term? In other words, over the next 10 years.
I would first thank Mike for his service as former Veterans Affairs Minister, and certainly would do my friend Erin. And I would like to mention that Laurie Hahn is here. Laurie Hahn, who I've had the privilege to serve with. Laurie Hahn. And I would say, Mike, thanks for what we call in politics the softball, because we need to invest and walk the walk, as they say in English. You know, we talk the talk, we walk the walk. We indeed need to invest more wisely, not only in terms of money, but have a procurement process that does not generate bureaucrats and red tape, but really ships, airplane, and hopefully F-35, Laurie. I congratulate you for this big fight, and also make the Army one of the best in the world. So yes, we need to step up to the plate, and I agree with President Trump that we need to have the means to assume our sovereignty, and especially in the Northwest Passage and in the Arctic.
Merci, Monsieur Blaney. Thank you. Mr. Trost, 45 seconds, 45 seconds.
Two elements to this question. Security with the United States. That is absolutely the most important priority we need to have, be it dealing with Islamic extremist terrorism, dealing with threats from North Korea. Number one priority, because if we don't get the security relationship right, not only for our own sake, we can have an absolute economic calamity when the Americans shut down the borders. On our own defense, we need to guarantee moving from 1% GDP by 0.1% every year, starting with re-equipping our troops. The Navy and the Air Force are desperately short of good quality equipment. That needs to be our number one priority in rebuilding our armed forces. Thank you.
Rick Peterson.
These guys all want to shuffle pieces of the pie around. I want to grow the pie. If you want to reinvest in the Army, if you want to reinvest in the military, if you want to reinvest in our security agents, you got to make a bigger economy. How do you make a bigger economy? 0 corporate income tax, 15% flat tax. We're going to put $200 billion of GDP in the first 4 years of my administration. If we do that, yes, we can go to the table to Donald Trump and we can say, we're here, we have a check, we don't have a Visa card that's overdrawn. We need to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake about it. Canada's physical and military security depends upon its economic security. I am the only candidate with a plan, with the idea from the private sector to grow the economy, to protect us in the north, in the east, in the west, and against everybody who wants at us. My plan protects you. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson. Deepak O'Brien.
Thank you. As 20 years in the government, we have worked very hard, and I was on the special committee on Afghanistan with Laurie Hahn when we oversaw the mission in Afghanistan. Very clear, we have to stand up and do our share to protect our country and to protect the world. We did that in World War II. We have veterans. I go every time and I say, thank you for giving me the freedom, and our soldiers are still working. But we have to stand up and we have to carry our share of making this country safe. When I was in NORAD, you see the big sign out there. It is Canada and US airspace. When it's Mexico, it's all quiet. We work very strongly with the Americans. We cannot afford not to pick our share in protecting our country, our continent, as well as making our world a safer place to live.
Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
Aaron O'Toole.
I'm very proud to have served our country for 12 years in uniform. Why? Because I served with exceptional men and women from coast to coast who all put their country first before themselves, including some exceptional Albertans. I was proud to also be Laurie Hahn's wingman in Parliament and to have his support in my bid to lead our party as a veteran and as a Conservative MP. On doit donner l'équipement et l'entraînement nécessaires.
We have to provide the necessary equipment and training to the armed forces.
Equipment they need to do the job for us at home and abroad. So I have a plan that says we will meet the 2% NATO target. We're a founding member of NATO. We have to meet our commitments. We'll do that by defending our north better, giving our equipment to our men and women in the Reg Force and reserves, and being a world leader in cyber warfare. We can get it done.
Thank you. Andrew Scheer.
C'est très important d'appuyer les
It's very
hommes et
important
femmes
to
dans les forces
support the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces.
It's very important that we support the men and women who put their lives on the line when Parliament asks them to do a job and defend this country. We have a Prime Minister right now who has pulled our jets out of the fight against radical Islamic terrorism in the Middle East. I would recommit Canada's armed forces to that fight, and I would give them the tools they need to do their job. We have to do procurement better and smarter. We have to depoliticize the procurement cycle, because every election cycle, one or the other party campaigns and uses the equipment we give our men and women in the armed forces as a political football. We need a long-term plan that can keep costs down. There's a lot of waste in the Department of National Defense. We can put that waste back into the equipment supporting our frontline troops.
Thank you. And now a rebuttal from Rick Peterson.
You know, Andrew, you've been a full-time politician all your life. You have been a couple months, I think, in the insurance business, but you've been on the gravy train. And I actually think you're the lead engineer of the gravy train, because when I hear you talk about our veterans and the private sector, as the Speaker of the House and as somebody who's in a leadership role, you should show up for work, shouldn't you? Right? So I love Andrew, but he's missed 2/3 of the votes in the House and Commons, and he's still making $170K. He hasn't given the money back to you. He's missed 2/3 of the votes as the Speaker. He's asking for your support. So he's taking money from veterans, from you, from me, from the private sector, pocketing it, and he's not showing up to vote. That's not leadership.
Mr. Andrew Scheer.
You know, many people might not know this about Rick. He likes to poke fun at politicians. He likes to belittle the public service that everyone up here on stage has committed to rebuilding this party and this country. But what he doesn't tell you is that he tried to get on that gravy train himself several times. He just couldn't find anyone to elect him. Now, A little bit of parliamentary procedure for you, Rick. The Speaker doesn't miss votes. The Speaker presides over votes. I didn't miss those votes. I was in the Speaker's chair while they were happening. And I am proud to be working on your behalf to regain the trust of Canadians in Atlantic Canada, in Ontario, so that we can win again in 2019, and I will continue doing that until May 27th.
Thank you. And now we'll continue with Chris Alexander. On continue avec Monsieur Alexander.
First, no one should doubt Andrew Scheer's commitment to public service. He's a great MP, he was a great speaker. I had the honor to succeed Laurie Hahn in the position of Parliamentary Secretary for National Defence, and we all agree, I think, on this stage, Conservatives across the country agree something has to give. We need a big change in our commitment to national defense. The United States spends 35 times what we spend. The increases that Trump is asking for are 4 times our total budget. So we need a larger Air Force, we need a larger Navy, we need an independent procurement agency, we need a larger army, and we need to join the fight in Syria and over Syria and Iraq against Islamic terrorism.
Michael Chong.
Well, thank you for the question. I believe in the Canadian Armed Forces and the values that they stand for, and the reason's simple. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the Canadian Forces. It was my father who was defended by the Royal Rifles of Canada and the Winnipeg Grenadiers during the Battle of Hong Kong, and my mother's family was liberated by Canadian soldiers during the liberation of the Netherlands. And I support our long-term commitment to meet 2% of GDP on defense spending. However, the reality is this, that over the last 30 years, Conservative and Liberal governments have not met that commitment because it involves a doubling of defense spending from roughly $18 billion a year to $36 billion a year. So there's only one way that we can meet that commitment, and that's by growing the economy and by making major economic changes such as deep income tax cuts to get this economy moving, to provide the revenues to pay for the increased defense spending.
Thank you, Mr. Chong. And now a rebuttal from Stephen Blaney.
Okay, Michael, I just got to say that a tax is a tax is a tax. And please, this green carbon shift, we've seen it with Stéphane Dion before. We've seen that movie before. The way to grow the economy is grow our resource sector. Have gas access to the market, but also, and my colleague from Ontario would tell you, nuclear is a great Canadian strength. We can recycle our nuclear waste. We can use modular small reactor to reduce the footprint for oil sands exploitation in Fort McMurray. And we can also use it to replace those existing nuclear plants to lower costs for small businesses. Grow the economy with our Canadian resources and stop talking about taxes.
Pierre Lemieux.
All right, thank you. I want to start my comments with what I think you believe and what Canadians across the country believe. Our men and women in uniform give 100% to Canada. They deserve more than 1% from Canada. Alors, j'ai joint la Force Armée à 17 ans.
I joined the armed forces at the age of 17, and I survived for 20
when
years.
Equipment was rusting out from under us, when the forces were being downsized, and it was brutal, I will tell you. But we were saved by a Conservative government that came in and rejuvenated the Canadian Armed Forces. As leader, I'm committing to 2% for our men and women in uniform to ensure that they are the proper size, the proper balance, and that they are properly equipped to do what it is that we ask them to do in the defense of Canada. They deserve our support, and they will have it under a Pierre Lemieux government. Thank you.
Andrew Saxton.
L'OTAN était établi en face de la menace de la
NATO
guerre
was established in the
NATO
face
was
of the
established in
threat
response to
of,
the threat of the Soviet Union. We
war.
still have threats, very valid threats still today. We have threats which are taking place in Crimea, in Ukraine. We have threats in Eastern Europe. We have threats to our own Arctic sovereignty as well. So yes, we have to contribute to NATO. We're a member of NATO, and our partners expect us to contribute to NATO. $18 billion is what it would cost to get us up to the 2% level. Currently, we're at about 0.9%, which is $18 billion. We have to grow the economy if we're going to do that. We also have to protect our men and women and make sure that they have the equipment necessary to protect themselves and to succeed in their missions. And as Prime Minister of Canada, I will make sure that we do that. Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you, Mr. Saxton. Maxime Bernier.
Our foreign policy must be based on the security and prosperity of Canadians. And we must fight, yes, we must fight with our allies against terrorism all across the world, but that will be costly. How are we going to do that? I want to achieve the goal. I want to spend 2% of the GDP on our defense. How are we going to do that? I have a plan. We just have to abolish corporate welfare. There's $5 billion there, and I'm the only candidate on the stage who want to abolish corporate welfare. No more grant to Bombardier, no more grant to GMs. Let's be fair, and let's use the money for Canadians' defense. Thank you.
Lisa Raitt.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I can
Oh,
tell you
pardon me,
this.
My apologies, Lisa. We have a rebuttal from Chris Alexander. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. Excuse me. That's my fault. Pardon me. My fault.
Sorry, Lisa. I just wanted to underline the point about defense. It's not just about doing our part in NATO. It's not just about dealing with a major threat. I was in Afghanistan for 6 years. Terrorism in Syria and Iraq, much worse, threatening the future of at least a dozen countries. But it's not just about that. It's about our economic future. If we are going to get to the point where 50% of our exports as Canada are going beyond North America, are going to Asia, are going to Europe, are going to Latin America and Africa, we have to contribute to the stability of the world. We need to be protecting shipping lanes. We need to have that Navy. And yes, we need the best fighter jets and nuclear-powered submarines.
Thank you. Lisa Raitt. Yeah, please continue. S'il vous plaît, continuez.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think you can hear that we're all very conservative, and we want to make sure that defense has everything that they need. I believe that the negotiation of this is going to happen at a higher level, at a different table. This is something that's geopolitical in nature, and Mr. Trump is going to have expectations, and any government is going to have to deal with them. So the question is, where do you find the money? Now, we have the Honorable Lori Hahn here tonight. We have the Honorable Mike Lake here as well, I can see in the audience. The reason why those two gentlemen carry the term honorable is because, like me, we served on an actual committee that was given the mandate by Prime Minister Harper to find waste in the government. And they can tell you, and I can tell you, it is not an easy proposition whatsoever. But we did it before, we can do it again, and I actually have the experience to get it done.
Thank you, Lisa. And finally, Kelly Leach.
Like my colleagues here, I will meet the 2% commitment. As Canadians, we always stand up, step up, and make sure we support our allies. Our men and women in uniform, like my grandfather and great uncles, actually defend Canadian values. They do that every single day. They put themselves in harm's way to do so. They deserve our support, not only here at home, but also abroad. And here at home, specifically to your question, Stephanie, we need to make sure that our Arctic border, that longest border in the world with Russia, is protected. Arctic sovereignty is a top priority for myself. I will make sure the men and women in uniform have the resources they need to do their jobs well, protecting Canadian values.
Thank you, Kelly. And now a rebuttal from Brad Trost. Une réplique de Brad Trost.
We all basically agree on here that defense spending needs to go up and our troops need to have best equipment. But security is more than about defense spending. For a lot of us, the biggest issue now coming is the threat of terrorism coming to Canada, and we need to think outside the box how to fight it. We need to think about things like having a foreign intelligence service that can go out there and get the information before people attack Canada. We need to think about how to reconfigure our troops so that when we go out there for different sorts of fights around the world, we have a variety of assets out there. Defense spending is important, but we need to tie it to our security apparatuses here in the country because we are facing a completely different threat than we faced in the Cold War. This is not about countries coming after about us. This is increasingly more about extremists coming after Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Yes, Mr. Trost, question 4, quatrième question. Leslie from Manitoba writes in, we see on the news almost nightly about the ongoing illegal border crossings from the US into Canada. In some places, these crossings are up over 300% from just a few years ago. The challenges this presents to our immigration system and protecting our border and border communities is significant. educating those looking to cross the border about the risk this brings to not just their freedom, since they are immediately detained, but more importantly, to their safety and well-being is also considered hugely important. As opposition leader, what would you do to pressure the Liberals to start acting on this issue, and what would you advocate for? Leslie de Manitoba écrit: Chaque soir dans les nouvelles, nous voyons le passage illégal de nos frontières canadiennes en provenance des États-Unis. À certains endroits, ces passages illégaux de nos frontières ont augmenté de plus de 300% par rapport à seulement quelques années passées. Des défis que cela représente à notre système d'immigration et la protection de nos frontières et aux localités frontalières sont très importants. Informer les personnes cherchant à traverser la frontière illégalement sur les risques que cela entraîne, non seulement pour leur liberté, puisqu'elles sont immédiatement détenues, mais plus important encore, à leur sécurité et bien-être, et également tout aussi important.
Which is
en
just
tant
as
que
important.
chef de l'opposition,
As the leader of the
que
opposition,
pour
what
mettre
would
la
you
pression
do
sur les libéraux
to
afin
put
qu'ils
pressure on the
commencent à
Liberals
agir
to get them to start taking action on this situation? And what would you propose?
You know what? Canadians need to defend their southern border. It's something that we often don't think about, but what we need to do is we need to enforce the law, and we need to do it quickly. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is there's going to be more economic migrants coming north, because that's fundamentally what this is about. We need to enforce the law, and we need to bring this up repeatedly in the House of Commons and push the Liberals to deal with it. We got rid of fake immigration when we were in government because we understood very clearly that when you come from countries like Western Europe, when you come from countries like the United States, you need to have an expedited process because it is extremely rare when you're an actual refugee. This is about an economic migrant crisis, and if we don't deal with it quickly, we're going to end up with some of the same problems that Germany has now. Canada needs to be firm.
Thank you. We're moving now to Mr. Stephen Blaney. Monsieur Stephen Blaney.
Okay, good. Okay, you're next. Okay. So I want to thank Leslie for a question. Actually, Leslie, I've already asked Prime Minister Trudeau to stand up to maintain the integrity of our immigration system and keep our borders safe with 3 measures. The first one, increase the number of RCMP officer and CBSA officer. The second one, we need to harmonize what's going on at the border. At the port of entry, we can say to an illegal immigrant, you're not welcome. But along the border, it's more complicated, so we need to deal with this issue. And third thing, I went in Montreal last week, and I told former colleague of the House of Commons, Denis Coderre, Denis, you are making Montreal a sanctuary city, but I ask you one thing, work with CBSA officer and ensure to apply the law of this land, because we want to live in a country where law is applied to anyone, and I say it to every Canadian citizen,
Merci,
abide by
Blaney.
the Canadian law.
You. Kelly Leach.
These people have entered our country illegally. They should be detained, questioned, and sent back to the United States immediately. Let me be very clear. I have been talking about this serious issue of immigration since the beginning of the campaign. Other candidates on this stage are now twisting themselves into pretzels to talk about it as well. I will implement what I talk about, whether that's detaining these individuals now, or whether it be interviewing every immigrant, refugee, and visitor to Canada. I will make sure that we protect our Canadian values. Let's be very clear. This is important to our nation. This is a serious issue that individuals and democracies around the globe are talking about, but we have a government with their head in the sand, and many candidates as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. A rebuttal from Rick Peterson. Une réplique de Monsieur Peterson.
Kelly, you're a really smart woman. You got 22 letters behind you, but you're, thank you, 18. But your campaign is a train wreck. What you've allowed happen is you've allowed the media to mangle your message, to mangle a good idea of screening, which takes place right now, and a good idea of values, which we all understand. And what she's done is allow the media to control our message, where the key thing that we have to understand is, as conservatives, we understand the need for security. go to petersonleader.ca. As the captain of the team, as the captain of the Conservative team, I will make sure that voices in my caucus are heard about that. But I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Canada is the home of immigrants. We have a strong security system. We need to enforce it. My tax plan will allow it. But we have been hurt by the polemic and the bad vibes coming out of that campaign. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Peterson. Lisa Raitt.
It's not only illegal what's happening there, it's incredibly unsafe. And former Minister of Transport, I can tell you that having families walk along live railway lines is a terrible idea, and somebody is going to be seriously hurt, and it has to be dealt with appropriately. I also would say that when we try to communicate this, to Rick and Kelly's point, that we're reminded in our own constituencies, particularly in mine, which is a very diverse constituency in Milton, lots of people with lots of questions about immigration all the time. Every single time more people come across the border illegally and claim refugee status, the line and the wait gets longer for those who went through the process legally. And we have to make sure we continue to communicate that as well.
Okay, Monsieur Maxime Bernier.
Je suis d'accord avec qu'il faut vraiment s'assurer que les frontières soient nos frontières et qu'on soit fiers de les protéger. And I agree with Jason Kenney when he said that we must renegotiate the safe third country agreement with our partner, the U.S. And I'm ready to do that. That's the solution. Because right now, they're illegal, they're coming to Canada, and it's unfair for all the other refugees, and we must change the system. But the way to do that, we cannot do that alone. We must sit with our partners and renegotiate that agreement, and like that, everybody will respect our border. That's what I intend to do, and I think it will be the real solution.
Andrew Saxton.
We need to protect our sovereignty, and we need to defend the integrity of our borders. So we need to make sure that the RCMP have the resources necessary to deal with this problem. You think it's a problem now. Just wait till the ice and snow melts in May, June, and July. There's going to be a lot more people coming across that border. We also need to renegotiate the safe third-party agreement with the United States. There's a loophole. And that loophole means that we can only send people back who come through at regular border checks. If they come through the forest, we can't send them back. That's common sense, and it works for both countries in both directions. We need to renegotiate that with the United States. When it comes to immigration, as Prime Minister of Canada, I would focus on economic immigration. We had a system that worked under the last Conservative government. Over 10 years, we had 3 million new Canadians come to Canada, and they were integrated. It was a figure that we could manage, 270,000 a year. That's what I would go back to as Prime Minister of Canada.
Mr. Saxton, thank you. Pierre Lemieux.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Oui, certainement, il y a un problème
yes,
qui
of
existe
course, there
aujourd'hui,
is a problem
et ça va
today,
devenir pire
and
avec
it's going to
l'arrivée
get
du
even
printemps
worse
et de l'été.
with
And I'm
the
just saying
arrival of the
problem
spring
is
and summer.
going to get worse as we move into the spring and into the summer. I believe that the solution lies in amending the Safe Third Countries Act or agreement that we have with the United States. As Andrew mentioned, right now, we know that the refugees are not fleeing persecution in the United States. If they went through a proper border crossing, they would be turned back because of the agreement, which does not allow them to enter Canada because they are not fleeing persecution in the United States. That agreement does not apply when they cross anywhere else other than a crossing point. So we need to amend that agreement with the United States to protect the entire Canadian border. Thank you.
And now a rebuttal from Lisa Raitt, une réplique de Lisa Raitt.
More of a clarification than a rebuttal. This is where it's important that you actually have experience in how the government works. We don't have to go through the whole process of amending a bilateral treaty. Every minister has ministerial order ability. I had it in transport. Stephen Blaney, I just checked with. Kelly had it. You can, by the stroke of a pen, make any law you need to in order to protect the safety and security of Canadians. That's exactly what we should be asking in the House of Commons every single day. That's the kind of thing that I would go after Justin Trudeau on. I would cross-examine him on this topic relentlessly. They have the power. Do they have the desire to protect Canadians? That's the question they'd have to answer.
Michael Chong.
Thank you for the question. Canada has one of the most generous immigration systems in the world with high levels of public support, and there's a reason for that. We have an immigration system with integrity, where we don't have high numbers of illegal immigrants crossing the border, and where we have due process, where people can't jump the queue, and where we control the numbers of people entering the country. That is all under threat with the recent crossings in Emerson, Manitoba, and in Quebec. And the reality is this: every single one of those migrants who are illegally crossing the border, they are arrested, they are detained, and they enter our asylum-seeking process. The vast majority of them will be denied asylum and will be deported back to the United States. What needs to happen is that the Prime Minister of this country needs to reverse the tweet, the irresponsible tweet he put out several months ago, indicating that people could cross the border illegally.
Chris Alexander.
Illegal, irregular, dangerous immigration, migration, it's corrosive of public confidence. It has to stop. It happened under Obama. People came to Canada, sometimes in large numbers. Did the media pay any attention at that time? People fleeing Obama's America? No. They're paying attention now for different reasons. President Trump has announced some new measures today that may have an impact on the flows. We'll have to see. But we have the tools, if we're willing to use them, and we, as Conservatives, knew how to use them. What I'm sick and tired of is one of my colleagues on this stage implying that for 10 years, Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney and the rest of us did not screen immigrants for Canadian values, for national security, and for criminality. We did that. We made the system better. We reduced abuse. It's the best in the world.
Merci, Monsieur Alexander. Oh, a rebuttal? Rebuttal from Kelly Leach.
I just want to be very clear. I have a common sense idea on what we should do about immigration. I'm talking about interviewing each individual that comes into our country. Immigrant, refugee, visitor. This is what our nation did until around 2002. Now we interview 1 in 10 approximately. That means 270,000 people entered Canada last year without an interview. This is a common sense idea. In addition to that, I want to make sure that they accept our Canadian values. I encourage you, go and look at my video about a common sense policy that I think we should apply to our country to make sure that we remain safe and secure. Thank you very much.
Andrew Scheer.
On doit assurer l'intégrité de nos
We have to
frontières.
ensure the integrity of our borders. That is absolutely essential to Canada's safety.
It's very important that we communicate on this very importantly. Lisa was absolutely right. I've visited a lot of communities across this country, and those people who have come to this country, new Canadians, whether they are economic immigrants or refugees, are very concerned that people jump the queue and put the entire system at risk, especially when they've waited years and followed all the rules and jumped through all the hoops that they have to. So we have to communicate very carefully on this. And again, this is misplaced liberal compassion. I've been to North Dakota. It's very safe. You don't have to flee North Dakota to come into Manitoba. The U.S. is a safe country. We need to close the loophole, and we do need a fast-track system to return these.
Good. Aaron O'Toole.
C'est possible d'avoir une approche sur
It is
cet enjeu
possible
avec
to have an
compassion,
approach
tout en
to this
respectant
issue
nos
based
droits.
on compassion
Le
while
Premier
still
ministre
respecting
doit
people's rights.
renforcer
The Prime
notre
Minister
accord
must
avec les
enforce
États-Unis
our
et notre
agreement with the
frontière.
United States
The Prime
and
Minister
protect our
must
border.
enforce our safe third country agreement with the United States and enforce our border. I called for that last week, both measures, and you see earlier I talked about making sure rural border communities have enhanced RCMP and CBSA resources to make sure this is done. And the only candidate in the last year that asked the tough questions in Commons and in Committee on Security Screening was me. A lot of people are talking about it now in this race. And you can do it in a way that's balanced and focused at public safety. And if we do that, we'll win.
Thank you,
we do it wrong,
O'Toole.
we'll lose.
Merci, Monsieur. Thank you. Right. Deepak O'Brien.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very compassionate people. When we see those pictures, you know, something goes in us and we say, yes, we should help them. But the point, as everybody else has mentioned, we are also a country of lawmaking. It is very important that our laws be upheld. As everybody had said, immigrants who have followed the system, like I have done and many others have done, when we look at it, we say, yes, follow the system, as simple as that it is. If you will look at what is happening on the Mexican side, there are a lot of people who want to come the same way. They have found a loophole, and the loophole is just show up at the border at not the crossings, and they'll be in. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to fix that loophole so that our borders are safe. It's the integrity of our border. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Rick Peterson. Monsieur Peterson.
Coming from Northern Alberta, I think it's useful to remember that aside from First Nations, we're all immigrants, aren't we? Right? We're all immigrants. We're all immigrants. And it all comes down to money again, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I commend and I follow Stephen Blaney's lead on this. Pierre Lemieux, I like what you have to say on this. I think these are strong ideas. And as Prime Minister, they'll be part of my cabinet. We'll be coming forward with ideas on this. But I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, again, we need border control increases. We need resource increases. How do you do it? You got to grow the pie. 0 corporate income tax, 15% flat tax. Grow the economy. But I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the reason we grow the economy is security. Security on our southern border, security on our borders. Canada is a target. We need to be able to finance our protection, finance our security. As your Prime Minister, that's my priority. Thank you.
The next question will begin a new theme: the Conservative Party of Canada, its membership, its governance, and its future. La prochaine question portera sur
The next question
Le
will
Parti
deal
conservateur
with
du
a
Canada,
new
ses
theme,
membres,
the
sa
Conservative
gouvernance,
Party of Canada,
gouvernance
its
et son
members,
avenir.
its governance, and its future.
Rick Peterson, question 5, cinquième question. The Conservative Party is a grassroots managed party, one that relies on our membership to guide us. We also know that there is always room to improve. With that in mind, if elected leader of the Conservative Party, what changes would you advocate for, either within our structure, our processes, or policies? Le Parti conservateur est une partie gérée par les membres de la
Conservative
base,
Party
une partie
is
qui dépend
managed
de ses
by
membres pour la
grassroots
guider.
members.
Nous savons qu'il y a
We know
toujours place à la
that there is
l'amélioration.
still and
À
always
lumière
room
de
for
cette
improvement.
constatation, si vous êtes élu chef du
So,
Parti
if elected
conservateur,
leader of the
quels
Conservative Party,
changements
what changes
proposeriez-vous
would you
pour sa
introduce
structure interne, ses
to the
processus,
internal
ses politiques?
structure, the processes and policies of the
Comme
party?
membre à Saint-Laurent à Montréal et tous ceux qui
As
sont au Québec à travers
a
le Canada, je vous
member
comprends parce
for
que je suis
Saint-Laurent, I
parmi
can
vous.
tell you that
Je suis militant de
I
base.
understand
Je suis dans
you.
cette course
I'm a
parce que depuis 30
grassroots
ans,
advocate
travaille pour le
because
Parti
for 30
conservateur.
years now, I've been working for the
1986, I started
Conservative
working
Party.
for the party at the base, and I know what it's like to organize events like this. I respect everybody on this stage because when I pull on a jersey, if I'm lucky to pull on an Oilers jersey, that's not going to happen, but when I pull on a Conservative jersey, I respect it. And I respect it. I respect people who are here, and I respect the individuals who are putting on events. So I will be the leader who walks the talk, who doesn't skip events. We have somebody here who's hulking and sulking in a little corner. Everybody here is a champion. Everybody here is a captain, right? My team does not have room for losers.
Merci, Monsieur
Thank you.
Peterson. Thank you. Mr. O'Brien, you have 45 seconds. Vous avez 45 secondes.
I'm stealing your mic, but I'm not talking on your behalf. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. Being a dean of the Conservative Caucus when I started, we want to make sure that the Conservative Party is not narrow-based party. It is not a party only for few people. It is a party, a big blue tent, ladies and gentlemen. A very simple example, I see how culturally insensitive we are. When I went to people to ask them to sign up for a membership, old Indian folks who stay with their families, they could not sign because we refused to accept cash. We changed that thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to be sensitive so that we can make this party open big, so everybody can join this party and make this party what it really was, the founding party of this country, the big party of this country, ladies and gentlemen. That should be the Conservative Party, that everybody can find home in this party. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron O'Toole.
Thank you. Important question and critical for us to win the next election. We must listen to the grassroots of our party. And that's what I'll do as leader, and I've said that from day one, because I was the grassroots of this party, knocking on doors, campaigning in many provinces for conservative values and for making sure we fight the next election and win. That's why I'm running. Nous devons décentraliser
We
notre
must
parti.
decentralize our party.
Nous avons besoin des bureaux, des
We
travailleurs
need
dans les régions. We need
offices
workers on the
in
ground
the
in the ridings
regions.
in the regions of this country. In Alberta, to win back those seats in Calgary and Edmonton we lost. In cities like Toronto, in Montreal. We must empower our grassroots. Less people in HQ in Ottawa, more people on the ground helping you make sure we deliver more Conservative MPs. Thank you.
Mr. Scheer, we have a rebuttal from Bad Trost. Une réplique de Monsieur Bad Trost.
There's a couple different ways to look at this. But let's first of all remember, we need to contact party members more than just to ask them for money. In our legacy parties, we used to actually ask people for their opinions. I think it's a good thing, at least on a quarterly basis, for the leader to survey the party membership on policies of the day and things of interest. Every 2 years, convention is great. But there are tens upon tens of thousands of Conservatives who want to participate in discussions on policy. We need to actually reach out and talk to them. Nowadays, with the internet, with mail, there's all sorts of things. Surveys are cheap. Let's get the party membership to have their opinions in the party.
Andrew Scheer.
Comme conservateurs, nous croyons dans un gouvernement
As conservatives, we believe in a decentralized government. It's very important, therefore, to have a decentralized party.
We need a decentralized party. How many people in the room worked on a campaign in the last election? How many people found the National War Room helpful in the last election? I worked on a local campaign. And I trust our candidates, I trust our campaign managers to spread that conservative message. We don't need to have an Ottawa knows best approach for our government. We shouldn't have one for our party. And it starts with empowering our members and our individual MPs. When I was Speaker of the House of Commons, I had a landmark ruling upholding the rights of individual MPs to speak out on issues that are important for them and vote their conscience or vote their constituents. We do more of that. We empower MPs, we empower our grassroots.
Merci, Monsieur Scheer. Thank you. And now, Chris Alexander. Mr. Alexander.
Comme vous, je crois au Parti conservateur pour
like you, I believe in the Conservative government to reflect all of Canada and all the regions and everything that we are and everything we want to be. And we have to trust the basic institutions.
We have to turn things around. Social media has turned politics on its head. We are latecomers to that game. Let's put the leadership in the hands of every Conservative Party member, of every Canadian who wants to be a Conservative, and there are a lot more than a couple of 100,000 of them, to lead the permanent conversation about a new Canada, about new markets, about a new economy, about a new government, a Conservative government.
Thank you. Merci. Mr. Michael Chong.
Merci pour la question. On doit bâtir un plus grand parti conservateur.
I think we need to have a bigger Conservative Party that includes all Canadians without regard for race or religion.
We also have to acknowledge that our party has shrunk in the last 10 years. We've lost 2/3 of our membership. More Canadians don't vote for us than do vote for us or would consider voting for us. We need to grow our party significantly if we're going to take on Justin Trudeau and win. And that starts by introducing democratic reforms that are going to return power back to the people and power back to grassroots party members. I'm the guy that introduced the Reform Act. I fought for that act because I believe that we need to introduce sweeping reforms to clean out the political elite and return real power back to ordinary people and ordinary party members.
Thank you. Pierre Lemieux.
Merci beaucoup. Il faut agrandir notre Parti conservateur.
We have to expand the Conservative
Party by bringing people in, people with ideas and people with ideals. And we need to practice democracy and freedom of speech to the fullest extent within our party so that people feel welcome and they feel they can express themselves and have their values. And that is not the case right now. Because right now, if you want to talk about life issues, they're off the table, right? How many times have you heard a politician, even a Conservative politician, say, oh, do you want to talk about life? That debate is over. That debate is shut down. I will not reopen that debate. And you go, whoa, are we in a democracy here? If we want a healthy party, if we want to have a party that brings in people with many different backgrounds, then let's have freedom of speech and let's kick out political correctness. Thank you.
Mr. Andrew Saxton.
Si on veut gagner en 2019, il faut
if we want to win in 2019, we have to listen to people at the grassroots.
We have to listen to the base. We have to listen to the grassroots. We didn't do that in the last election. We had a one-size-fits-all campaign, and it didn't work. We also have to reach out to young people. We didn't have young people support us in the last election. We need a strategy for social media. Well, we had a strategy in the last election. It was stay off social media, and we saw how good that was. You know, young people today, they don't read the newspaper. They're online. And that's where we have to be as well. Justin Trudeau had the Obama team come up from Washington to teach him how to work the social media. We need to work social media in a much better way. We need to increase the base. We need to increase the membership. I'm in favor of lowering the membership fee for young Canadians so we get more young Canadians as conservatives.
Maxime Bernier.
We need to listen to you, to the members. We didn't do that. You said at the last convention in Vancouver that you want to get rid of corporate welfare, and we still have big subsidies to big corporations. I'm the only one who want to listen to you. And at the same time, some of our members, they want to have a discussion on life issues, and we must be open to that. I'm open to that. I said to my colleagues that yes, we'll have a debate about life issues, and that will be your right as a member of parliament to table a bill on any subject, and we'll have a free vote. It will be a free vote for everybody. So let's have this debate together, because we have the right ideas, we have the bold ideas, and together we'll be able to win.
Merci, Monsieur Bernier. And now a rebuttal from Mr. Aaron O'Toole. Oh, so
That was a great question, talking about how our grassroots can help us win in the next election. Now we have to ask ourselves, which leader can win the next election? Which leader can win those votes back in suburban Canada, in rural Canada, in urban Canada, from coast to coast? Who can go in to the Legion halls, the church basements, the small businesses, and win back that confidence of Canadians that voted for us in 11 or 08? I'm that leader. 12 years in the Canadian Armed Forces lets me know what it's like to serve in a uniform. The corporate sector, 10 years in the private sector working for large, small companies, all sectors, growing jobs in the real economy. A father of 2 young children that fights for secure communities and safety, and a hopeful, optimistic outlook. We can't let Justin Trudeau own positivity. Conservatives are roll up the sleeves, activists. Let's win this next election together.
Maintenant, Monsieur Blaney.
Maxime, pendant 10 ans, on a défendu ensemble,
For 10 years together,
la promotion de
we
libre-échange, mais on a aussi
promoted
défendu
free
les
trade,
producteurs
but we
agricoles.
also
Et c'est
defended
une position de
agricultural
notre parti. Tu
producers.
dis qu'il faut écouter les
And
membres.
you say we have
Oui,
to
on doit
listen
être à
to the
l'écoute des
members.
membres. On
Yes,
doit
we
pas
have
non
to
plus
listen to the
leur dire des
members,
sornettes
but
et des
we
fausses vérités.
shouldn't
We have to
tell
tell
them
the
false
truth about the
truths.
model. Why I have a point where Maxime says we need to listen to members, where this is in our platform, that the only sector that is not subsidized is this dairy sector. Maxime, we would have to heavily buy those quota. We would like to pay higher price for milk, and we would have to subsidize the farmers like we do for other sectors. I stand up for a sector that is great for our economy, and that is, and I won't cave in to American subsidized milk because I believe to put Canada first.
Thank you. Lisa Raitt.
Thank you. All of us on this stage aren't running for Prime Minister. We're running to be the leader of the Conservative Party. And it's the best job you can possibly want to have because we have so much possibility. I look at this as the one job I want to have because I've been a CEO in my life. I've built great teams. We need to recruit the best and the brightest to help us. We have 338 ridings. And I'm so grateful for the work that Rona Ambrose and our other elected MPs are doing in the House of Commons right now, making the Conservative Party of Canada relevant and well-liked and well-respected. I would build on that. I would build on that with our national councillors. I would find us the best candidates and inspire them to run for our party again.
Thank you, Lisa. Kelly Leach.
I've had the good fortune of being a member of this party for over 30 years. My father was the riding president in Fort McMurray, Alberta. He sort of voluntold me to get involved in the party. I can tell you that I love this party and I love its membership, and I've been hearing from you all over the country. You want a decentralized party, a party that doesn't take your money, a party that invests in you, and that's exactly what I would do. We have to make sure that we're recruiting women into our party. That was our path to victory in 2011 when we won 41% of English-speaking women. We also need young people, and I've had experience doing that on campus associations across the country. I look forward to working with all of you so that we win in 2019.
Thank you, Ms. Leach. Stephen Blaney.
One of the great assets of our party is respect for each other and freedom on issue of conscience. That's why I'm proud to run this campaign with people like Brad and Pierre, but also to have stand in the House of Commons with people like Stephen Fletcher, who have different views on very different issues. This is something unique to our party that we need to keep and cherish, and this leadership is a good opportunity for that. Now, I just want to say that when I got elected in 2006, I took my dad to Fort McMurray, and we visited the then MP, which is now the leader of the White Rose, Brian Jean. I want to tell you, Brian, I'm so proud of your career. And look, he got along with my dad. He shows his firearm to my dad. I was jealous at you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a rebuttal from Lisa Raitt.
I'm really glad that Kelly mentioned about recruitment. It's the most important thing. And I know that we have to pick the right leader to win in 2019. Mr. O'Toole came forward and he made his pitch as to why he's the best person. But listen to what he said. He wants to go to legions, church basements, and he wants to go to small businesses. You know where we have to go, guys? We've got to go to the hockey rinks. We got to go to the soccer fields. We got to go where the voters who didn't vote for us last time need to be captured and brought back to us. That's what I bring to the table. That's the area in which I'm comfortable. Can I go to the Atlantic provinces? Of course. Rona Ambrose has gone 7 times already to Atlantic Canada to do a great job in building a foundation. I would continue on that pace, and I would make sure that we bring all those voters back to us.
Finally, Brad Trost.
When I introduced legislation to privatize the CBC, my board of directors in Saskatoon University got up and cheered unanimously, all 30 of them, grassroots conservatives. When I told our party leadership about it, they gave me grief because, you know, this is one of those issues you're not supposed to touch. We as conservatives need to be in touch with our membership. We need to know what they think. That's why we need to reach out to them and ask for their opinions. I'll say it before, I'll say it again. Reaching out and talking to the membership is more than asking about money. We need to know your views. We need to have your input throughout the entire year, not just every other year at National Convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for this theme. Oh, pardon me, we have a rebuttal from Pierre Lemieux.
Yes, thank you very much. I believe that if we want to win as conservatives, we need to be conservative. We cannot be liberal light and expect to win. We need to know what we stand for, and we need to stand our ground, and we need to stop being politically correct. We need to stop voting for motions and bills in the House of Commons that actually advance the liberal ideological agenda. And we all know the ones that we're thinking of. And I just want to give you an example about political correctness. We all know the weapons of political correctness, the preferred weapons. If you happen to have a certain value, you must be phobic of some kind, or you must be intolerant, or you must be discriminatory, regardless of how you articulate your position. So what I want to tell you is that, you might have guessed, I'm pro-life, I am pro-family, I am pro-freedom of speech, I am social conservative, I am proud of it, and I'm standing here in front of you.
Next question for this theme, and the last question of the debate, is the following. Describe what your management style would be and how you would work with our party members, our elected National Council, and our parliamentary caucus if you were selected leader. La prochaine question sur ce thème est la dernière question du débat.
The next question will be the final question in this debate. Describe what your management style would be and how you would work with the members of our party, the members of the National Executive, and the members of our parliamentary caucus if you are elected
Deepak Oberoi, you are
leader.
first. 45 seconds, please. Oh. 45 seconds, s'il vous plaît.
Folks, I want to use my rebuttal as well, so I will talk for 1.5 minutes, okay? I'm using my rebuttal, all right? Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen.
Je pense que non.
Thank you, thank you. So the question here is, ladies and gentlemen, what kind of a party do we want? The party of the future? You know what, ladies and gentlemen? Our core base has built this party, 20 years in this party, and I know how this party works. They have built this party, but now we need to move forward. We need to move forward to go into the 21st or 22nd century. Sitting over there is my grandson, my little fellow grandson here. He's asking this question, you know, what is in there for me? What can I look forward? What can my grandson look forward for? Can he look forward for a safe environment? Can he look forward for a freedom of speech? Can he look forward for equality? Can he look forward for an economic policy that will look after him for his future? That is what the Conservative Party should be, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, we need to make a big tent, and yes, Pierre, and yes, everybody else, we should have the voice in this party. Pro-life, pro-choice, everybody, they should be able to come into this big blue tent and be able to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a leader who will bridge all this gap. We have new Canadians out there, we have young millennials out there, we have the X generation out there, we have the baby boomers like me out there, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in my family, in one family, I got all of them in there. So, the question here is, where is this party going to go? This party needs to go forward, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Merci, Monsieur.
My rebuttal.
You've used your rebuttal already. You've used both. No, ça c'est les deux. That's the both of them. Yep. No. Les deux. Ça c'est les deux. The both of them. That's finished. Yeah, that's it, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you so much. All right. Continuing, Mr. Rick Peterson.
You know, if you go to, I mean, you'll see my leadership style. You go to petersonleader.ca. You know what? I just kind of call it like I see it. I mean, Andrew Scheer can argue with me, but he can't argue with the record on the House of Commons. Go to petersonleader.ca. He's no longer the speaker, and he has his kind of. But you know what? Being a captain means saying what needs to be said, but the captain is understanding and going to the wall for each and every Conservative, which I will do. I will go to the wall for you as I will go to the wall for my teammates, for my family, and for my party. Leadership means understanding where the power comes from. The power comes from you. It is a pleasure and an honor to be standing before you. I hope I have your support at petersonleader.ca. You can go there and maybe even donate $97 if you'd like to my campaign and help me go to become your captain in May 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Trost.
My first campaign manager is what you would call a classic red Tory. Pro-choice, pro-CBC of all things, everything that I'm not. I am the ultimate pro-life, social conservative, tax-cutting, fiscal hawk who wants to privatize the CBC and doesn't want any sort of climate change program. And yet she's voting for me, she loves me, and she still wants to work and back my campaigns. Why? Because I went out of the way to reach out to everyone in my riding association from every background. We have very many different types of Conservative. I have them all on my team in Saskatoon, not in spite of being a Conservative, but because I'm an across-the-board Conservative.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Blaney.
Okay, merci. You know, in life, there's two ways, I believe, to go up. It's whether you take people and you just put them in the mud, or you just lift the people around you, and the first thing you know is all is good. So I look around me and I find that there are great people. And it's been like this for 10 years, now when 1 year in the opposition, with Stephen Harper, and with people like Laurie or Brian, you were there for a while, and a lot of my colleague, Blaine is here. There's senators, my new colleague from RCMP. So we are a team, we are a family, and that's what is very important to me, and respect and communication probably, and especially Quebecers, we need to talk more about Alberta and this pipeline. We should settle this together.
Thank you. Okay, Kelly Leach.
Leadership is about confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence in your team, and confidence in the membership. I'm also confident in the ideas that I'm bringing forward because the majority of Canadians agree with them. We as Conservatives are the most successful when we are not afraid to talk about conservative ideas grounded in conservative values. I can tell you I won't be flinching on any of my ideas. I won't be changing my mind, like Maxime Bernier on corporate welfare. $200 billion, $200 million to Bombardier, and now he wants to eliminate corporate welfare. Let's be very clear, folks. I don't flip-flop. I have ideas. I'm going to make sure that I stay on top of them.
We have a rebuttal from Maxime Bernier, une réplique de Monsieur Bernier.
You know, I believe in entrepreneurs, and I don't believe in corporate welfare. I think it's why, if you don't believe in that, why you want to keep subsidies to Bombardier, GM. I want to abolish all that because I believe in entrepreneurs, and I think it would be the fair policy to take that money and lower taxes for every single entrepreneur. You are building this country, you are creating wealth and jobs, and we must help you, so I have the best plan for that. And like that, you will be able to do what you do best. You know, I'm in politics because I don't believe in the big fat government in Ottawa. I want a government that will respect the Constitution, that will respect taxpayers, and that will respect the entrepreneurs. So that's why we'll be able to build this country and be back in government with strong conservative values.
Lisa Raitt.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. The one phrase that goes through my mind, especially on a night like tonight, is when you're hunting bear, don't get distracted by the rabbits, right? We have one thing we need to focus on. My style of leadership is simple. It's collaborative, it's compassionate, with a little bit of comedy. You try to keep it light as well. I'm a diligent, focused, relentless, and incredibly hardworking individual who knows what we want to do as a collective, and that's to get rid of Justin Trudeau's Liberals in 2019. And the way to do that, the best way, in my opinion, is to work on those 338 constituencies and make sure we have those superstars that we need to have in order to win back the confidence of Canadians. And I would absolutely commit to doing that.
Merci, Lisa. Maxime Bernier.
My leadership will be based on our values as conservative. And we conservative, we have faith in people. We have faith that you have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make your own decision and determine your own destiny. And I want to have a smaller government in Ottawa. For me, that is not a slogan. That is something that we believe in. And I have strong policies to be sure that we'll have a government in Ottawa that will respect the Constitution, respect taxpayers, and at the same time will give us more freedom and more prosperity. So the way to do that is to abolish the CRTC. I'm the only one who wants to abolish the CRTC in the telecom. Privatize Canada Post, privatize the airport, big reform, and would be successful.
Thank you, Max. Andrew Saxton, Mr. Saxton.
I'm used to leading and motivating a team of bankers. If I can lead and motivate a team of bankers, I can lead and motivate a team of politicians. I will be an inclusive leader. I will make sure that we keep this big tent Conservative Party together. You know why? Because when we stick together, we can win. When we're divided, we don't win. We've got to keep this coalition together, and as leader, I will work hard to make sure we do that. I will make sure that we invest in technology. Many people in this room are familiar with SIMS. Well, SIMS was state-of-the-art 10 years ago. It's not today. We need a new system. I will also invest in training so that our candidates can go to those all-candidates meetings and that there's not an empty chair there representing Conservatives, because I tell you, we have a great story to tell. We get the big things right, and therefore we should go to all of those all-candidates meetings, and I will invest to make sure that we have the proper training and technology. Thank you.
Monsieur Pierre Lemieux.
Thank you very much. I believe that you want a leader, and Canadians want a leader that understands service. And so I offer you service, 30 years of service to my family as a husband and father of 5 children. I offer you 20 years of service in the Canadian Armed Forces to our country, and I offer you 10 years of service as a member of Parliament. And I think you can tell from my comments tonight that I have a tremendous respect for you, the membership, and to the critical impact that you have on the health of our party. And as leader of the Conservative Party, that is my vision, that we have to have the right policies moving into 2019. We have to have the right policies to attract Canadians to our platform, but we're going to win because of the engagement of you and of members and of new members on the ground in that election, helping us to win, using your networks and working on our campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, I see we have a rebuttal from Andrew Saxton.
To win in 2019, we have to win back young Canadians. And I tell you, in Canada right now, the unemployment rate amongst young Canadians is double the national average. It's 14%. I have a plan to help young Canadians get jobs. I lived in Switzerland. I saw firsthand how an apprenticeship program can help young people. In Switzerland, the vast majority, yes, it's true, the vast majority of young people in Switzerland don't go to university. They go into apprenticeship programs. And I'm not just talking about the trades. I'm talking about professions like banking, insurance, and pharmaceuticals. These are some of the professions that we can also train our young people. Young people are happy because they get paid to learn. The businesses are happy because they're teaching the skills that are necessary in that industry. And the government's happy because the private sector is doing most of the training. These are the kind of ideas we need as Conservatives to win in 2019.
Mr. Michael Chong.
Vous avez un choix clair dans cette course de leadership.
You have a clear choice in this
leadership race between a narrow vision that plays to fear and anti-immigrant sentiment that will not win us the next election. In fact, it will hand the Liberals government for the next 15 years. Or my vision of a much bigger Conservative Party that includes Canadians of all races, religions, and creeds, Canadians from all regions of the country that is centered on our shared Conservative values, principles, and policies. I'm a Conservative that believes in the optimistic conservatism of Conservatives like Peter Lougheed and Brian Mulroney, of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, an optimistic conservatism that includes everyone that takes this country forward. Join our campaign at chong.ca. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Mr. Chris Alexander.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. This is my favorite question of the evening because I think it's absolutely important for all of us to think about what it will take to bring the Conservative family together. And my style would be dedicated. It would be energetic. It would be relentless. If Albertans are rallying for this province, Conservatives in Alberta are rallying, I'll be there. Ask Brian Jean. If we have a group in Quebec that are looking for a new option, that are thinking about pipelines, I will be there. The same in Liberal ridings across the country, the same with our grassroots. We need to be a team, and we need to inspire each other with the dream of a new Canada, of new markets, of new government, and of a new economy for the next generation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Mr. Andrew Scheer.
A good leader can find the common ground between all the different kinds of Conservatives. We need every kind of Conservative excited to be part of the team and ready to work in 2019. You can't even run for the Liberals or the NDP if you have certain views. We need everyone who wants to be a member of our party or run for our party feel that they have a voice and feel welcome. The leader finds the common ground between all those kinds of Conservatives and works on it. If you took a piece of paper and wrote down all the things that Conservatives agree on one sheet, and another one where you wrote all the things we disagree on, I'd like to focus on this one first. I think we do better, we will win, and I'll tell you what, when the Liberals are in power, it's bad for every kind of Conservative. So we need to stay focused on that.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. On doit respecter les règles. I have to respect the rules. And finally, finalement, Monsieur Arnautour.
The question is, who will you work with? National Council, our members? I will. All members of this party. Our amazing team, especially our team here in Alberta that just put out a jobs crisis plan for Alberta to get the Trudeau government to pay attention. I'll work with great candidates like you, Stephanie, to make sure you win in your by-election. James Cummings and others I see here to grow our party from coast to coast and win back that trust of Canadians. That's why I'm very proud to have amazing support from MPs from coast to coast, from provincial party leaders in Nova Scotia, right through to business leaders, volunteers that want to win the next election. Social Conservatives, Red Tories, everyone is welcome because we need to make sure we win. $30 billion deficits, higher taxes, and no full-time jobs in his first year. We can't let this continue.
You, Mr. O'Toole.
Let's win together.
Merci. Oh, we have some rebuttals before our closing statements here. Andrew Scheer.
Sorry, there are closing
no, there are not my closing statements. Le mien.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think the fundamental question here tonight is who do you want to see leading the party going into the next election? We disagree on a few things, but by and large, Conservatives all agree on lower taxes, balancing the budget, and a stronger national defense. But who can articulate that positive message to reach a broader audience of Canadians? That's the key. I know I can do that. I am very proud and honored to have the support of the vast overwhelming support of members of our caucus. I have the most members of our caucus supporting my campaign, senators and MPs. Je suis aussi fier d'avoir l'appui de 4 députés de Quebec. I have the support of 4 Quebec MPs. I have the most Quebec support, even more than my Quebec colleagues on stage. I know I can take that positive message, win seats in Quebec and Atlantic Canada. I'm asking for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A rebuttal from Lisa Raitt.
Thank you very much. This isn't only about who will be the leadership. It's very clear. With this many candidates, it's not going to be one on the first ballot. I would ask for your consideration on your second vote or on your third vote, and here's why. I do have that level of experience needed to be the leader of this party. I do have a very unique set of circumstances. I know what it's like to grow up in a place that's been overlooked for so many years and struggle just to make an education and a career for myself so I could raise my kids. I'll never forget those things. I want to fight for those families. And those families are in Alberta now, because who would have thought it would have happened this way? That Cape Bretoners come here to get their jobs, but now there's no jobs for them. I have your back. I will fight for you.
Merci, Lisa. Thank you. And that ends our debate this evening. I'd like to thank everyone who came out tonight and spent time at home watching this with us. Please be sure to purchase a Conservative Party membership before March 28th in order to vote in our leadership.
This completes the debate for this evening. I'd like to thank all of you who came out and joined us tonight for this debate and who listened to it at home. Please don't forget to renew your membership cards before March 28th in order to be able to vote in the next leadership vote.
As this race continues. And please, let's give them all a round of applause. Bon succès aux candidats dans la canton de secteur.
Best of luck in the leadership race.
Merci. Thank you.
I wanted to say that you would be the next MP. I forgot.
No, you're kind. You did amazing.